application, working with city planning on the text, and you're doing the environmental impact statement. Our goal is that we're doing that. We'll be working on that for the next couple of months with the goal of certifying the application in October. That's the formal beginning of the public review process. So that will happen in October. The community board will have 60 days, and we'll talk to you before then, and we'll be talking to you a lot during that process. So I think that is the last slide. We can open it up.
All right, we'll open it up to questions now. We'll start on this side first and work our way over. So we'll start right to left. Yes, this gentleman here.
I'm ignorant of the design. But when you hire an architect, is there a blueprint, buildings, a sketch, a scenario, or is that going to be fit in with what is okay by the regulatory agency?
I'm going to answer it in two ways.
If you could repeat the question so we'll make sure we can hear.
Sure. So the question was, will architects, this is, I'm going to paraphrase, let me know if I have it right. And the question is, will architects be sort of designing be the ones sort of informing the zoning, or will the architects have to comply with what the zoning controls And the reason I'm going to answer it really twofold is that there has been a long process, and as when Cornell was looking and thinking about the request for proposals, it did a conceptual plan and a conceptual idea about what might make sense. Not everything about that conceptual plan was right or perfect, but there were a lot of really good ideas. And so that, we worked with the architect who developed that plan to, again, start to identify things we thought were, important about that design, and started thinking about zoning text that really reflected those elements. The goal, though, is to make sure that the zoning allows for innovation. And so there's a little bit, so we start with an architect, the architect informs the zoning. Our goal is to make sure the zoning allows for architects to do great work. So that's how it works.
Okay, more on this side. Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned that there are parking requirements for residential on Roosevelt. Could you explain a little more about what they are?
Sure. In our 7-2 zones, the requirement is one parking space for every 2 dwelling units.
Melanie, I think what's confusing some people here is that you gotta understand that most of Roosevelt Island is not subject to zoning.
Yes,
So
at that, yes. So usually, you're right, that if in an R72 zone, you would have to do unit for parking for 50% of the units. So I think we're looking at, Cornell's looking at about a little less than 1,100 units. So that would be 550 spaces. RIAC has a ground lease over most of the island, and they are not subject to zoning, but they do not have a lease over the Goldwater campus. And so unless there's a zoning provision and a change, then you would be having to provide for parking for the residents. That's not something Cornell wants to do. They think to the extent that parking is needed, it's really more for the R&D facilities and for some of the conference facilities.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
What about transportation to and from the island? We're increasing the population considerably here, and we're already having problems with that. Have you thought of that?
Yeah, and again, one of the things we're not talking about tonight, but it's clearly part of it, is looking at all of the environmental consequences of the project. And so there's the document called an environmental impact statement. And in that context, the environment is everything. It is traffic, it is pedestrian quality, it is transportation. So we are looking at that, and that will be part of what will be being reviewed through the process.
Yeah, that environmental impact statement is fairly detailed. They're going to have to do analysis basically on what kind of impact, for instance, like having these additional people here and the traffic, and there's a lot that goes into that. So actually that part of that requirement is actually fairly thorough when it comes to that, and you'll be getting more information on that. Yes, okay, but Larry, before I go to you, I want to go to the public, if I can do that first. Hands over here, we'll go over, yeah, how are you?
I'm wondering if there's a schedule for moving patients out of Goldwater, the demolition of the hospital, and then how that will coincide with the construction of Epsom related on the east bank of building 789.
I'm gonna, Kathy, do you have the date on when the Goldwater, do you have the date of when Goldwater is scheduled to be vacated?
So that's really a question for the city. My understanding is next summer. And we're still on track for, we don't actually have possession of the site yet. That would happen in December, obviously after it's been vacated. So summer to fall is my understanding. Others may know better. That's a question for the city.
We'll try to get that information to you also, to get more specific schedule about when they plan to move people over, because that's certainly part of this. There's a hand over here, yes, ma'am.
Yes, you mentioned manufacturing. I'm wondering if you could elaborate, what is going to be manufactured? What are going to be environmental issues?
And it's unfortunate, because what I'm really talking about, there's one use which is in every academic campus in the entire world, which are labs. But zoning has these very strict characterizations and classifications of uses. So we're not proposing that all manufacturing uses be permitted. It's really the one, which are laboratories, so that they can do academic research.
Okay, yes, go ahead.
When you were calculating the FAR ratios and the total number of square footage, were you including the land that currently is controlled by the state in terms of REOC and not controlled by the city?
Well, the FAR, I see what you're saying, in terms of the loop with the land inside. What zoning will do, they'll map the street, and the zoning lot will include all of the land inside the street. So it will include some land which is currently under REOC's leasehold. I think the size of the campus with a widened street is about 12 acres, more or less. It's about that amount. And that would be the development parcel from the zoning standpoint.
And does that still have to be, does this have to be a conveyance from the state to the city for that too?
There are other actions that will be required for this project that are not part of the city's reviewer process, and one of those would be REOC conveyance or release of that land from its lease.
Okay, yes, ma'am, question back there.
I didn't hear it. When is demolition plan you're starting on
Demolition plan?
Yes.
So again, what our understanding is that the Goldwater campus will be vacated by the summer of next year.
Summer to fall, and demolition is early as January 2014. That's when it would start. That's our current plan.
Right. Okay, yes, go ahead.
Are there any plans to do anything prior to this huge development in terms of maybe taking executive space on Roosevelt Island?
Can you repeat that question?
Sure. The question is whether or not there's any intention or plan to take temporary space on Roosevelt Island. And again, I think this is a question for Kathy, but in terms of the academic space, they did the Google's headquarters in 111 8th Avenue. So that's, I think, the main That's exactly right.
Okay, questions? Yes, ma'am.
My question is, the egress of the water, they're going to have laboratories and facilities here, and DEP is clearing the water. So, what's it going to do with the chemicals that they're going to treat out into the laboratories?
One, they're dry labs. Yes. So
Yeah,
the
can you
question,
repeat the question?
yes, so the question is, I think a concern about the labs and whether or not there'll be chemicals and things like that that would need to be treated.
I can answer that. No, that's a great question. Laboratory always, you always envision some mad scientists and beakers and chemicals, and that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about dry labs, which are really robotics that somebody might put together, and no chemicals at all. We have a medical college right across the East River. We're building a $1 billion building right now to build more wet labs over
Yes,
there.
ma'am.
Even though you're dry lab, who's going to take any waste? The waste is going to be removed from the town?
So how's the waste going to be removed is the question?
Yeah, dry lab.
From the dry labs?
The dry labs won't be any different than normal waste you would have in a normal building with, you know, through bathrooms and that kind of thing. Dry labs really, just think about an empty room. But in effect, it's an empty room for research and development. It doesn't have anything special as far as chemicals
Does that
go.
answer your question?
So it would be done in the same way.
Yeah.
As other waste.
Okay, yes, sir.
Will the EIS consider the interface of the campus with existing systems on the island?
Absolutely. They're looking at every piece of infrastructure, capacity from electric, sewers, all of that will be part of the EIS.
HVAC system too?
HVAC, I think so, yeah, because you have that very interesting system, so that will be part of it.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. I was told it was close to like December last or something, August, September or fall, whatever. Why are you trying to close so soon? Because a lot of people have to go.
Ma'am, that's my fault. If I'm giving you the wrong month, please, as I said, we need to ask the city on the exact time. I have no new news that says it's closing any earlier than what you've been told. So I don't want to mislead in any way. I just know sometime before December.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
yeah, so just.
So please don't let my
Just
comment
in
mislead
terms
you.
of when you're gonna submit the actual app, we got a preliminary application, right? Or at least preliminary information, right? The formal one that comes to us that triggers the ULURP process, you're expecting that in October, you're expecting that, right, based
Yes.
on that, okay? So that will trigger the 60-day period, correct? So we'll need that, at that point, we'll be holding our meetings and reviewing that, okay? Yeah, okay, ma'am, yes.
I'm concerned about the air quality. Years ago, we hired environmentalists, and they told us that because of the Queensboro Bridge gasoline emissions and the Keystone plant, that we have poor air quality here, and it can only get worse with demolition and construction. And particulates, of course, as you know, are carcinogens. Will you have air quality monitors, and will you have something to mitigate poor air quality?
Right, so the question is about this concern that this lady has about air quality, and so what will we be doing in terms of responding to that?
During construction.
And demolition?
Yes.
During construction and demolition,
Yes,
yes. Okay.
and so, again, one of the things, and one of the parts of the environmental impact statement is a very detailed focus on the construction of the project. And it looks at how many trucks will be coming onto the island, what types of conditions might occur during demolition, during construction. So there'll be an analysis about that. There will also, as part of the environmental review, be measures that would be implemented as part of the project to try to address some of those concerns. So for an example, one of the standard requirements that exist often is that you would make sure that you have, new equipment with these things called diesel particulate filters, which help to limit the amount of exhaust that would happen from any particular truck. So when you see the environmental review, it will include construction protection measures, as well as if there are any impacts, because there's very detailed analysis of how you would mitigate those actual
Right, that's
impacts.
part of the environmental impact statement again, is air quality is certainly part of that as well. Yes, yeah, I'm gonna go back to someone who hasn't asked one, and then I'll get right back. Yes, sir, in the back.
Will open space and public access,
Sorry, say it again, please.
will open space and public access be a mandated feature or something that is offered? In other words, if it's offered, it can be taken away. I remember seeing an early design that predates the Cornell proposal, predates everything, it's probably many, many years ago. Something that was floated that essentially would have wound up with a sort of a narrow corridor for the public to pass, with the rest belonging to some institution. I just want to make sure that that there will be more than assurances that your plan for open space and public access will endure.
And the zoning will actually mandate it. So it's not just a promise of Cornell to provide open space. The zoning will say there must be open space, and if Cornell turned into some other university on the site, then they would also have to do the obligations. Cornell's not going to turn into another university, but it will be a mandate.
Okay, yes, we had this lady here.
Following up on that open space quality, you showed a drawing that depicted a zigzag path going through buildings. What does it mean to go through buildings? Arcades with free access, or it seemed to be, the juncture seemed to be a public space, a space where the campus students could gather. I gathered that the public is not invited to the atrium of where the juncture is, and does one pass through the buildings unimpeded, or is this a identifier needed so that the path looks like open space but actually is dead ends?
The intention is to make it as inviting and as friendly and as public as possible, and so that would be the goals. And again, this is incredibly diagrammatic, and when you see it in the fall, there'll be images that sort of explain what the concepts are, but the intention is to create great open space and a variety of open spaces that are for the campus, but also very much for Roosevelt Island residents as well.
And our vision has always been to have what we're, terrible name, but we're loosely calling a tech walk, which is a public spine through the campus for everybody, and that you don't have to go inside and outside, that anybody can walk either through the middle of the campus or, of course, on these beautiful exterior walks.
Okay, yes, right here at the table, yes.
Does the zoning require any indoor public space? I understand that there's a lot of outdoor or paths, but is there going to be anywhere for congregation or for...
I'll answer from a zoning standpoint, because when we were thinking about it, we thought that the exterior space is the thing that's the most important, because if it is indoors and people don't feel like they can open up the doors, you don't necessarily, we want to make sure it's used and it's welcoming and inviting. So from a zoning standpoint, we're talking about exterior space.
But Cornell, if you go up to our campus in Ithaca, we have open campuses, and these are very much large atriums, which we're thinking about how to fit spaces in there where the public can come and enjoy them too. So I can't say 24/7 the doors will be unlocked, but certainly for most of the day our buildings are open.
Okay, yes, ma'am, in the back.
Again, going back to air quality. Goldwater is a building that's been up for over 100 years. Is the air quality going to be monitoring with the asbestos and what have you with Goldwater?
You're saying with the construction on
Right.
Goldwater, is the air quality going to be monitored given what kind of particulate matter may be coming out of there?
Correct. That's a 100-year-old structure. That's an asbestos building.
Right, and so there's a number of things that have to happen before you can do the demolition of a building of that size, of that age. You have to do something called a phase 2 environmental assessment, and you have to do a phase 1, and those are things that will be done. I'm sure you're absolutely right that there will be asbestos that will need to be taken and removed from that site. And if there is, and again, I'm sure you're right about that, there is a whole set of regulations that define how you go about doing it, how you have to secure the space, you have to create like a double lock environment to make sure it's done. And one of the regulations for removal of asbestos is that there is air monitoring right at the site. So that will be part of any asbestos removal.
Great, okay, yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Piggybacking on that.
Speak up, please.
In the same vein, with the demolition and the construction, how serious is anybody thinking about barging debris or construction material on and off the island?
Right.
Is
So the question
that
is,
expensive? Is it not being
Right.
considered?
So the question is about barging material on and off the island with regard to construction. Can you comment on that?
I think that they're looking mostly at traditional methods. They're
We're looking at all the options as part of the analysis that Melanie's been talking about, all the options for material coming on and off the island as part of our transportation analysis.
I mean, they're
Yes is the answer.
Yes is the answer?
Yes, we're looking at, that's what I said, we're looking at all the options.
No, the question was how serious was it? It wasn't yes or no.
Is it something you're leaning toward, something you're leaning against?
We are looking at all the options because until we get through our analysis, I can't tell you where we'll end up.
Okay.
But we're taking it very seriously, I will tell you that.
Is that why you're widening roads to get big trucks?
No, no. Can you talk a little more about mapping and what the city requires?
Yeah, I mean, right now, the street is a street that is not part of the city map. It doesn't get city services, and it really doesn't comply with the standards. So we started talking to the city about the desire to bring it into the city street system so we can get city utilities, we can get all about that, and spent a lot of time talking with both the Department of Transportation as well as the fire department. And the standard, usual standard from the fire department is a 34-foot width of roadway. And we spent a lot of time talking to them about the desire to narrow that as much as possible. So we ended up with the roadway that we had. We certainly didn't want to make it to provide more space for cars, which is why when we started talking to the fire department and we settled on the width that they found acceptable, that we took the opportunity to create the bike lane so that we really are creating an environment which we think there's a positive impact.
Yes, just before I get you, I just want to check to see if anybody hasn't asked a question. And then I'll go back. Yes, sir, you didn't ask.
One is on your 12 acres, it appears that you're going to have housing, hotel, and a little bit of research. So there won't be enough space for all of this. And 1,100 units. Does that mean you're not going to participate in new buildings that are associated with it forever?
So part one, if you can restate that so people can hear, also we can hear.
Sure. I think it was the first part was sort of a question of the program and the inclusion of residential in the program, and then the other part of that is whether Cornell is looking at the related buildings which are under construction or about to start construction, I guess. So Cathy should probably help answer the second one. But the program really is a mixture. It is a mixture of academic space, research space, conference facilities, and so it really does have a house, and so it really does have all of these elements. I think they're looking at the housing within the campus as being the primary for the students and the faculty that are there. So yeah, it's about 11 spaces.
Okay, second part, yes.
Anybody at the two ends of your property, which is exactly where two additional subway lines are. Has anybody talked to the city about making a hole, those lines?
I do not think.
Sure.
So the gentleman was pointing out that there are two subway lines that actually run under the southern part of Roosevelt Island, I guess on both sides of the campus.
One by the tram and one by the park.
And that's the first I've heard of it, and it's not something that I'm aware of that has been discussed with
So the question was whether is there anyone looking at attaching or running a connecting line, or just
opening the tunnels up and having a station.
Right, having a station there. I'm not aware of it. We can certainly raise that question and ask the question.
That question has been raised.
Yeah.
The resident association
Right.
asked them if that was possible.
And what did they say?
They said that it was $1 billion project.
Billion? Right. Okay, thank you. Okay, and one good third part? What's the third part coming up? Third part's coming up. Go ahead.
The third point is going to be sustainable. At one point in this conversation about getting geothermal or something, is that still part of the plan?
I can't hear the
So
question.
repeat the question again.
Talking about sustainability, and in particular whether geothermal is still part of what Cornell is looking at.
Yeah, so I didn't talk about sustainability. Thank you. I should have. Absolutely a key part of what we're doing, and one of the reasons we are so excited about Morphosis as their architect is they are fixated and really committed to sustainability. So legally with the city, we're committed to LEED Silver for the entire campus. But we said all along that we're pushing for net zero in our first academic building, which would be a huge statement. Would be the largest building we know of on the east coast, if not in the country. And what net zero again means for, in layperson's terms, is basically we generate as much power as we consume over the course of a year. So we're hard at work at that. We're looking at photovoltaics as one way to do it. And now you have reached my extent of engineering knowledge, but you know, those are some of the techniques we're looking at, including geothermal for heat.
Correct you, though, you won't be the first in the country or in the East Coast.
Large. No, not the first, the largest.
Not even.
Okay, well, please show me later, but it would be a statement. That would be good.
Okay, we'll give it to MIT, but I'm sure I don't represent either. All right, I'm going to go to this side. This lady has had her hand up, and I'll go over to you.
I'd
Yes,
like
ma'am.
to know, everyone to know that we have a large population of immigration. A lot of them are Russian. They're being wanted to go back to the country, and amputations and things like that. My concern is, we just got lawyers to see if they can help them. It's a large population, and we want to see, they're not going to meet the time element that you require. They're not going to meet that element. There's no way for them to go.
Are you talking about that these are residents within the hospital? These are Russian immigrants? Is that what you're saying?
Immigrants, immigration, we have a large population of poor folks and regular patients
You're saying within the hospital?
in the hospital.
And these are, okay, so these are immigrants. So you're, and what are you saying is going on?
I'm working on making lawyers, we work lawyers on this, the place that they're placing the hospital.
Right.
It's only for the respiratory people only, not the amputees or anything else. Next, year after next will be the place for them.
Right.
And 3, 4, 5, so they zone them for another year after your timeline. So they have no way to go.
Right.
And it's the largest population here.
Okay, so I'll follow up with that. We'll follow up with Booting Portal. We'll follow up and find out.
What is he talking about?
Okay, all right, I'll restate it. Within the hospital, you're saying there's a large number of immigrants who apparently are trying to get residency status, right?
They need apartments, they need
And you're saying that there's difficulty there placing them at this point? We're not sure. They can't place them at this point.
So we got lawyers to come in.
So you've got, are you with the hospital? Are you with the hospital? Okay.
I do other things, okay?
Okay.
Personally, but I brought the issue up, and they said lawyers is what they can do to help them.
Right. So you're
My concern is there's so many of them here, and nowhere to go. There's not a small, they don't even go outside. They stay inside.
So your concern is about those immigrants, basically, what their status is going to be. Ellen, did you have something else? Ellen Palby is with Community Board 8. She's a resident, also Roosevelt Island. Ellen?
If you give me your number, I'll call you and we'll talk about it, because I'm the chair of the health team and social services.
Yeah, Ellen also co-chairs that committee, but I'll talk to Ellen and we'll follow up and get the information from you. Okay?
The hospitals environmentally safe with striking open smoke. Now, I couldn't see you transferring any of that.
I'm sorry, say that again?